Good morning, everyone. I think we'll get started. It's just about 10 o'clock. I would like to start by thanking all of you for being here today on this National Day of Action to Stop Wage Theft. I really do appreciate all of your support. I would especially like to thank the Greater Columbus Jobs for Justice, the Cincinnati Interfaith Worker Center, and the AFL-CIO for their strong and continued advocacy for workers' rights. Thank you also to Matt Smith, who's in my office, and Cameron McNamee from the Senate Democratic Caucus for their tireless hours of work and research that went into this current bill. And a special thanks to my dear friend, the Reverend Harry Proctor, who came and joined us this morning, and to all my Senate colleagues who have co-sponsored and are here in support of me this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, wage theft is a very real problem, and cases continue to rise, not only here, but also in the state of Ohio. In newspapers all across the state, we see the stories of hard-working Ohioans not receiving the pay that they deserve. This can come in many forms. Forms of employers not paying workers their full wages, not paying workers their overtime, or worst case scenario, paying the workers nothing at all for the work that they have performed. I have received numerous phone calls from people across the state, from Cleveland to Cincinnati, who have suffered the unjust practices of their employers. For example, last year when the residual effects of Hurricane Ike swept through southwestern Ohio, workers who were employed by a subcontractor of a major utility company worked 100 hours week after week, cutting down trees and clearing away debris. These workers on the average were paid about $15 an hour. After a thorough investigation by the Department of Commerce, it was determined that one of these workers was not paid for about 120 hours of his work. And unfortunately, due to current law, this worker will only receive half of the wages that he deserves. This is a question about fairness. Senate Bill 212, the Wage Protection Act, will allow the Director of Commerce to investigate and enforce specific claims involving unpaid wages. This legislation would seek to expand the department's enforcement capabilities to allow the director to investigate complaints beyond the scope of minimum wage. Under current law, the Department of Commerce is only permitted to investigate and resolve violations of the minimum wage requirements, and that's under Article 2, Section 34A of the Ohio Constitution. Workers who earn above the minimum wage are unable to file a complaint with the department for the full amount of unpaid wages. So therefore, an individual who earns $10 an hour is only able to pursue $7.30 per hour of unpaid wages when filing a complaint with the Department of Commerce. While aggrieved workers have the option to pursue lost wages through a civil suit, this remedy is simply out of reach for so many hardworking Ohioans, especially in these difficult economic times. This legislation is intended to assist the workers who cannot afford legal counsel, but are still entitled to an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. To assist the department in effectively pursuing wage violations, Senate Bill 212 allows the Director of Commerce to recoup some of the investigational costs associated with a successful resolution of all unpaid wage claims, minimum wage or otherwise. This legislation affirms Ohio's commitment to protecting workers, and it will align its laws with that of many other states. In fact, the non-payment of an agreed or promised wage rate beyond the minimum wage is already being investigated by 43 other states, including neighboring Kentucky, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Michigan, and Indiana. Here in Ohio, we absolutely must work to strengthen these laws. In addition to Senate Bill 12, I am calling upon leaders in Congress to also address shocking deficiencies in federal wage and hour enforcement that were recently uncovered in a July 2009 Government Accountability Office report. The GAO report found many investigations of wage theft were inadequately handled and were dropped because the statute of limitations is too short and the investigations were simply taking too long. Senate Concurrent Resolution 22 urges Congress to enact this bill, also known as the Wage Theft Prevention Act. This federal bill will do away with the statute of limitations that has limited the U.S. Department of Labor to 2 years to resolve a wage complaint. The federal bill, H.R. 3303, would also allow workers to file private lawsuits while the Department of Labor is still investigating a complaint. These changes would ensure that delays in investigating claims of wage theft will not result in permanent loss of wages for workers. These acts of wage theft can no longer go unmonitored. It has a profound and devastating effect on workers and on the economy. We as legislators have the moral obligation, both here at the state level and nationally, to stop this wage theft from happening.